I was dreaming about something peaceful, waves crashing, the sound of wind through trees, when a sharp, metallic ping yanked me into reality. My eyes snapped open. The room was still dark, but I knew Emily wasn't beside me. The bed was cold where she should have been. The noise came again, her phone. A notification. A fast, hollow beat started up in my chest. She never left her phone out. Never. I reached for it before my brain could stop me. Face down on the nightstand, the screen still glowing. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the cold glass. I wasn't that kind of guy. I wasn't the insecure, phone-checking, snooping type. But something about this, about the way she'd been acting for weeks, curdled my gut. I flipped it over. A message. From someone named A. Can't stop thinking about last night. My body still feels you. When can I see you again? A bomb went off in my skull. I sat there, heart hammering, staring at those words like they might change if I blinked enough. My brain refused to process it. Maybe I was still dreaming. Maybe this was some sick joke. But the phone lit up again. Another message sliding in. Don't ghost me now, babe. I need you. The bed creaked as I stood up. My limbs felt detached, mechanical, like I wasn't inside my own body. The sound of running water filtered in from the bathroom. She was in the shower. She had no idea I was awake. No idea her phone had betrayed her. I clenched my jaw so hard it ached. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This wasn't paranoia. This was real. And I was about to find out exactly what the hell was going on. I moved without thinking. My hand gripped the phone so tightly my fingers ached. But I barely felt it. The sound of the shower filled the apartment, steam slipping from the crack beneath the bathroom door. My wife, my lying wife, was just feet away, washing off last night's sins while some fantasized about touching her again. I unlocked the phone. No hesitation. No second-guessing. Her password hadn't changed. For years together, and I had never once used it. But now, it might as well have been a detonator. The messages were endless. A full-blown affair unfolding in front of me like some sick novel I never wanted to read. It wasn't some random fling. He had a name, Alex. His contact photo was just a black screen, no face. But the things he texted her? Personal. Intimate. Filthy. I dreamt about your mouth all night. Did you sleep in my hoodie? Bet it smells like me now. I want you again. Tonight. Please. I felt sick. My stomach twisted, bile rising in my throat. But the worst part? The way she replied. Emily, my Emily, wasn't cold. Wasn't distant. No hesitation, no reluctance. Last night was dangerous. I can still feel you between my legs. A guttural noise tore out of me. Something between a growl and a breathless choke. The letters blurred. My whole body burned. Dangerous. She liked the risk. The thrill of betraying me. I scrolled up, my hands shaking so badly I could barely keep the screen steady. Weeks. Months. This had been going on behind my back while I played the role of the oblivious husband. She lied to my face. She made me feel crazy for noticing. And now? Now she was showering in my house, under my roof, washing off the evidence before climbing back into bed with me. The bathroom door clicked. I lifted my head. And there she was, dripping hair. A towel wrapped around her body. That easy, careless look in her eyes. But the second she saw me, the phone in my hands, it was like a mass cracking. Panic. Raw, naked panic. She didn't even try to play it cool. Give me my phone. My voice came out deathly calm. Who's Alex? Her lips parted, no sound coming out at first. That hesitation, that half a second of silence, told me everything. I stood up, slow and deliberate, letting the phone dangle between my fingers. Her eyes flicked to it, her breath shallow. Answer me. She swallowed hard. Then, like flipping a switch, she scowled. Like I was the one who did something wrong. Give me my phone now. She reached for it. I yanked it back. Her face twisted. What the fuck are you doing? Reading. My pulse was a war drum in my ears. Learning. Catching up on all the conversations you've been having behind my back. Give it. I threw it. Not at her. Past her. It smashed against the wall, the screen cracking on impact before sliding to the floor. She gasped. A flicker of shock. Then something uglier beneath it. Fury. The hell is wrong with you? She snapped. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Me? What's wrong with me? I stepped closer, and for the first time she took a step back. You've been screwing someone else for months, Emily. You've been lying to me. You think you get to be mad right now. She clenched her jaw. Her fists balled at her sides. But there was no apology in her eyes. No guilt. Just defiance. Like she wasn't sorry at all. Like she was just sorry I found out. She crossed her arms over her chest, still dripping from the shower, her towel slipping slightly at the edge. A normal man, an idiot, might have been distracted by that. But all I saw was the way her lips curled in irritation. Not guilt. You had no right to go through my phone. I let out a sharp breath, a sound that barely passed as laughter. No right. My hands curled into fists at my sides. You had no right to lie to me. You had no right to. My throat closed around the words, the reality too disgusting to say out loud. How long? She rolled her eyes. It doesn't matter. Something inside me cracked. The last piece of whatever had been holding me together. It doesn't. I cut myself off, shaking my head. Are you even hearing yourself right now? I pointed toward her phone, now lying shattered on the floor. That's months of messages, Emily. Months of sneaking around, of lying to my face, of... She scoffed, like I was overreacting. You're being dramatic. I swear to God, if I hadn't already broken her phone, I might have broken something else. Dramatic, I repeated, my voice quieter now, lower, more dangerous. She didn't like that. I saw it in the flicker of hesitation in her eyes, the way she shifted her weight just slightly. She'd expected me to yell. She'd expected a scene. She hadn't expected this cold, deadly rage. You've barely looked at me for weeks, I continued, my voice calm despite the wildfire burning inside me. You've treated me like I don't exist. And now I know why. Because I wasn't real to you anymore, was I? She said nothing. I took a step closer. She stepped back again. Good. Who is he? I asked, my voice still even. A coworker? A gym guy? Some old flame you reconnected with? Still, she said nothing. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth hurt. At least have the decency to tell me his last name, Emily. Her eyes darkened. Like you'd even know him. So that was her game. Stay vague. Pretend it wasn't serious. Try to downplay it like it wasn't a full-blown betrayal. I didn't give her the satisfaction. So it's serious then. That hit something. A tiny flicker of something in her expression. Maybe guilt. Maybe regret. Or maybe she just hated that I wasn't buying the minimal effort damage control. She sighed, brushing damp hair from her face. It just happened, okay? She said, her voice softer now, like that might make it better. I didn't mean for it to. It's not like I planned this. I stared at her, pure disbelief. You didn't mean for it to happen? I repeated, voice hollow. You didn't mean to send him pictures? Didn't mean to meet up? Didn't mean to let him? Stop. She snapped the word out like I was the problem here. Like I was hurting her. I laughed. A real bitter laugh this time. You are unbelievable. I was unhappy, she shot back. But you wouldn't even notice, would you? You were too busy working. Too busy? I took another step forward, cutting her off. Say it. She blinked. What? If you're gonna do this, if you're gonna throw away everything we had for him, then at least say it. Say what you did. Her mouth pressed into a tight line. I already told you. Say it, Emily. Silence. The truth sat between us. A festering wound she didn't want to touch. Because saying it would make it real. Would make her the villain instead of the victim she was trying to play. I took another step. She had nowhere left to go. Say it. She swallowed hard. She exhaled sharply, like this was exhausting for her. I was with him. I tilted my head. Where? She flinched. I leaned in slightly, voice steady. Where, Emily? Her lips parted. Nothing came out. I smiled, slow and cold. Our bed. She inhaled sharply, anger flashing across her face. Of course not. But something in her eyes shifted. The blood drained from my face. My whole body locked up, every muscle tightening at once. No, I said, voice barely above a whisper. No, you wouldn't. She said nothing. I laughed again. Not because it was funny. Because it was insane. She wouldn't, right? She wouldn't bring him here into our home, into our space. But she still wasn't speaking. And that silence told me everything. The world around me blurred. The walls, the floor, the air itself. It all felt fake, like a distorted dream I couldn't wake up from. But the look on her face, that silence where denial should have been, that was real. Too real. My hands shook at my sides, my breath shallow. I felt the sickening realization crawl under my skin, tightening around my ribs like a vice. She brought him here, to our home, to our bed. The bed where we used to lay together, tangled up in each other, whispering about the future. The bed where I told her I loved her more times than I could count. The bed where I thought we were safe. And she desecrated it. The silence between us was suffocating. The only sound was the faint dripping of water from her hair onto the hardwood floor. It was a slow, rhythmic tapping, like a countdown to something inevitable. I swallowed, forcing myself to speak. My voice came out raw. You. I had to stop, breathe. My hands curled into fists. You let him touch you in our bed? She finally broke her silence, but not with an apology. Not with regret. Instead, she sighed like I was being ridiculous. Do you really want to know that? She muttered, crossing her arms. Something inside me snapped. I moved fast, not toward her, never toward her, but toward the bedroom. My feet hit the floor hard, the door swinging open so violently it slammed against the wall. I needed to see it. I needed to know exactly how deep the knife was buried. The bed looked the same. The sheets were freshly washed, the pillows fluffed, everything neatly arranged. Too neatly. A cover-up. A crime scene scrubbed clean. But it didn't matter. I saw it now. I saw them here. I saw her lying in those sheets, arching under someone else's touch, whispering things to another man that used to be mine. I gripped the edge of the mattress so hard my knuckles turned white. My breath came in ragged gasps. I felt like I might be sick. Behind me, Emily lingered in the doorway, arms still crossed, watching me with annoyance. Like I was the one making this worse. Jesus, Nathan. It was just a mistake. A laugh tore out of me, sharp and humorless. A mistake. I spun to face her. A mistake is forgetting to turn off the stove. A mistake is sending a text to the wrong person. This. I gestured wildly around the room, my chest heaving. This was a choice. Over and over again. She rolled her eyes. She rolled her goddamn eyes. Yeah, well, I wasn't exactly happy, she shot back. What did you expect? I stared at her. The woman I thought I knew. The woman I thought I loved. I had expected everything. Loyalty, trust, partner, a teammate. I had given her all of me, and this was what she did in return. Something inside me went cold. I took a slow step toward her. Not aggressively, not threatening, just close enough that she had to look up at me. Tell me something, Emily? I said, voice deathly calm. Did you ever feel guilty? Her mouth opened, closed. She hesitated, and for a split second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. But then, she shrugged, like it didn't matter, like she had already made peace with it, and now it was my problem. I let out a shaky breath, nodding to myself. Right? I turned toward the closet, yanking the door open, grabbing the nearest duffel bag. You need to get the hell out. Emily scoffed. Oh, come on. I didn't look at her. I just started throwing her clothes into the bag. She marched forward, grabbing my wrist. Nathan, stop. You're being insane. I yanked my arm free. You should have thought about that before you screwed someone in our bed. Her jaw clenched. So that's it? You're just gonna kick me out? I zipped the bag violently and shoved it into her chest. Yes. She didn't take it at first. She just stood there, her expression shifting from disbelief to frustration to something almost amused. You're not serious, she scoffed. Get out, Emily. She tilted her head, smirking slightly. Smirking. You won't do it, she said, voice dripping with condescension. You're too much of a good guy to actually make me leave. That's why I never told you the truth. Because I knew you'd do exactly this. Act tough, throw a tantrum, and then let me stay. I stepped forward, closing the space between us. For the first time, she shrank back. My voice was steady, cold, final. Get out. Her smirk faltered. For a second, just a second, She finally looked nervous. Her confidence wavered. That smug little smirk twitched at the corner of her lips, like she was trying to decide whether to double down or finally take me seriously. Nathan, come on. She tried again, shifting the duffel bag in her arms like it was my fault she had to carry it. You're not thinking straight. Just sit down. Let's talk. I laughed, not out of humor, out of sheer, unfiltered disbelief. Talk, I repeated, shaking my head. You want to talk? I gestured toward the ruined phone on the floor, the bed that wasn't ours anymore, the entire mess she created. That's what we should have done months ago, Emily, before you started screwing some other guy in the place where we used to sleep. Her face twisted into something ugly, something defensive. Oh, please, spare me the heartbroken husband act, she snapped. You didn't even notice me half the time. You were always working late, always too tired, always too. I stepped forward. She shut up. I wasn't going to hit her. I wasn't going to scream. But something in my face, something in my silence, must have finally made her realize that she had lost. Take your bag, I said, voice sharp. Take your keys. And get the hell out of my house. She exhaled sharply through her nose, rolling her eyes like I was a petulant child and not the man whose life she just burned to the ground. Then she threw the bag onto the bed. I'm not leaving, she said simply. This is my place too. My fingers twitched at my sides. Not anymore. Her jaw clenched. She flicked her wet hair over her shoulder, shoulders squaring like she was digging in. Legally, she said, slow and deliberate. I live here too. You can't just throw me out. My breath caught in my throat. I stared at her, at the sheer audacity in her face, and felt something shift inside me. This wasn't a woman who had made a mistake. This wasn't someone who felt even a shred of guilt. This was a woman who thought she could cheat, lie, manipulate, and still win. She thought she had the upper hand. And that was her first mistake. I inhaled deeply, forcing my hands to relax, forcing my voice into something calm. All right, I murmured. Her eyes narrowed. What? I stepped back, nodded toward the bed. Stay here, then. For a second, just a second, she looked surprised, like she expected me to keep arguing, to keep throwing a fit like some weak, scorned fool. But I was done. Completely, utterly done. I turned on my heel and walked out of the bedroom. She didn't move at first, probably confused by how easily I gave up. But I heard her footsteps trailing after me as I moved through the hallway. Nathan, what are you doing? I didn't answer. I grabbed my car keys, my phone, and my wallet from the counter. Nathan. She was right behind me now. I could feel the tension rolling off her in waves. I swung the front door open, and then I looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman I once thought I'd grow old with, at the stranger standing in my home, the one who thought she could cheat and lie and somehow stay. I smiled. It wasn't warm. It wasn't kind. It was the smile of a man who had just figured out exactly how to destroy her. You're right, I said simply. Legally, you live here too. She blinked, thrown off by how calm I was. Exactly, she said. So, I'll be back in an hour, I interrupted. And when I return, I want you gone. She scoffed, crossing her arms. And what if I'm not? My smile widened. Then I'll call Alex. Her whole body froze. The color drained from her face. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Panic flickered in her eyes for the first time that morning. I tilted my head. Oh? You don't want me to? I let out a thoughtful hum. But he's the one you've been sneaking around with, right? So surely he'll take you in. Emily's throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. Nathan, she said, voice lower now, uncertain. I pressed forward, towering over her, voice still deadly calm. I'll send him every text, every picture, every I miss you, and I can still feel you message. I leaned in slightly, watching the way her hands trembled. I'll tell him to pick you up, right here outside our apartment. Hell, I'll even stay to make sure he does. She shoved me, not hard, but enough to make herself feel like she still had control. Stop, she snapped. Don't. Then get out. A long, long silence stretched between us. I held her gaze unblinking. I could see the calculations happening in her head. The fight she wanted to have, the argument she thought she could win, the reality settling in that she had finally lost. She wasn't in control anymore. Her lip curled. "You're such a piece of—" I laughed, right in her face. And then I walked out the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't look back. I just stepped outside, inhaling the cold morning air, and let her be the one trapped inside for once. I checked my watch. She had 1 hour. And she knew damn well I wasn't bluffing. I drove. Not to anywhere in particular. Just far enough to get away from the weight of that apartment, from the scent of her shampoo lingering in the hallway, from the ghost of them in my bed. My hands gripped the wheel tighter than necessary, my breath coming out in short, controlled bursts. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. Emily thought she was untouchable. She thought she could cheat, lie, and manipulate her way out of consequences. That's why she smirked. That's why she tried to turn it on me, like I was the unreasonable one for demanding respect in my own home. But now she was scared. I could still see it, the flicker of panic when I mentioned Alex. The way her whole body locked up, her breath caught in her throat. Why would she care? I turned down an empty road and let the question turn over in my mind. If Alex was just some random affair, she wouldn't have reacted like that. She wouldn't have looked like I held a loaded gun to her head. He doesn't know. The thought settled into my brain like ice. She never told him. He doesn't know she's married. That was it. That was her secret. I sucked in a slow breath. It made perfect sense. That's why she didn't just walk out when I found out, because she had nowhere to go. She wasn't some woman madly in love with another man, ready to start fresh. She was a liar playing 2 lives at once, and now her whole game was crumbling. I pulled into a gas station parking lot, tapping my fingers against the wheel, thinking, planning. If she was still in the apartment when I got back, I'd call Alex. I'd send him everything. The texts, the pictures, maybe even the security footage of her walking into our building after gym nights. Would he still want her then? Would he still call her babe when he realized she'd been sleeping in my bed between their little hookups? I smirked to myself, feeling a dark satisfaction settle deep in my chest. She thought she held all the cards. She was wrong. I checked my watch. 40 minutes left. I grabbed a bottle of water from inside the gas station, took my time drinking it in the parking lot. I imagined her pacing the apartment, flipping between rage and panic, probably calling Alex right now trying to figure out how to get ahead of this. But she couldn't, because no matter what she told him, it wouldn't matter. I had proof. By the time I got back, the apartment would either be empty, or I'd be sending the message that would burn her world to the ground. And honestly, either option worked for me. I took my time driving back. Not because I needed to, not because I was nervous, because I wanted her to sweat. I imagined her pacing the apartment, checking her phone every 2 minutes, waiting for the sound of my key in the lock. I imagined her trying to decide if she should text me, if she should lie, if she should cry, if she should beg. She'd never been in this position before, powerless, and I wanted her to feel every second of it. By the time I pulled into the parking lot, the clock had run out. 1 hour exactly. I stepped out of the car, stretched, cracked my neck. No rush. Let her panic. Then I headed upstairs. The second I stepped inside, I knew. She was still here. The air was thick with tension, the kind that fills a room before a storm breaks. Her duffel bag was on the couch now, still packed, still waiting. And Emily? She was sitting at the kitchen counter, arms crossed, face tight with barely contained anger. But underneath that, fear. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at me, like she was trying to figure out who the hell I was. Because the man standing in front of her wasn't the man she thought she could control. I shut the door behind me, slow and deliberate. Then I pulled out my phone, held it up, and tapped the screen. Her whole body tensed. "Last chance," I said calmly. "Leave. Now." Her jaw clenched. She stood up, slow and measured, like she thought if she played this right, she could still win. "You're really going to do this?" she said, tilting her head. "You're going to blow up my life over one mistake?" I scoffed. "One mistake." I took a step forward. She stepped back. "You didn't trip and fall onto another guy, Emily. You made a choice. Over and over again." She sucked in a sharp breath through her nose, nostrils flaring. "You don't get to act like you're perfect, Nathan." I let out a short, humorless laugh. Oh, I know I'm not perfect, but I know one thing. I wasn't the one screwing someone else in our bed. Her eye twitched, a crack in her composure. I didn't tell Alex about you, I continued, stepping even closer. Her back hit the counter. She had nowhere left to go. And I'm guessing you didn't tell him about me either. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Bingo. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. So what do you think he'll do when I send him all these texts? When he realizes his perfect little side piece was married this whole time. Her whole face twisted. Not in guilt. Not in remorse. In pure, unfiltered anger. You wouldn't. I raised my phone, thumb hovering over the screen. Try me, she snapped. She lunged for my phone, nails digging into my wrist, trying to yank it out of my hands. I didn't fight her. I let her grab it. She fumbled, breathing hard, tapping at the screen, trying to unlock it, but she couldn't, because it was locked with Face ID. My face. Her frustration exploded. She threw it across the room. It hit the wall, bounced off, landed on the couch. I smiled. Temper, temper. She was seething. You are such an asshole. I shrugged. And you're still standing in my apartment. We stared at each other. A long, tense silence. The air crackled with it, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down like a vice. Then, finally, she exhaled sharply, pushing past me. She snatched her duffel bag off the couch, yanked it onto her shoulder. You know what? She muttered. Fine. You win. I didn't respond. I didn't move. I just stood there watching as she stomped toward the door, muttering under her breath. She yanked it open, turned to look at me one last time, still furious. Then she was gone. The door slammed shut, and I just stood there. The apartment was silent. The kind of silence that comes after a hurricane has passed through, leaving nothing but wreckage behind. I inhaled deeply. Then I grabbed my phone, flopped onto the couch, and pulled up Alex's number. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I smiled, and I pressed send. The moment I hit send, I felt something shift. Not relief, not victory, something colder. I wasn't the type of guy to get revenge. That's what Emily had counted on. That's why she thought she could cheat, lie, smirk in my face, and still win. But she underestimated me. And now Alex knew everything. I leaned back on the couch, exhaling slowly as my phone screen dimmed. For a few minutes, nothing happened. No response. Just silence. Maybe he was still asleep. Maybe he was sitting somewhere, blissfully unaware, sipping his morning coffee. But that wouldn't last long, because he had the messages now. Every filthy, sneaking around, betrayal-soaked text. Every picture. Every last night was dangerous. And I still feel you whisper that she had sent behind my back. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Then my phone vibrated. Alex. Who is this? I smirked, thumb hovering over the keyboard. I typed slow, deliberate. Me. The husband of the woman you've been sleeping with. Silence. Then, Alex. What the hell are you talking about? I laughed to myself. He really had no clue. I could have drawn it out, made him squirm, let him piece it together himself. But I wasn't feeling patient. Not after everything. So I sent him a picture. One of Emily's texts from just last week. The one where she told him she missed him. Where she told him she wished she could stay the whole night. But she had to be careful. Delivered. Read. And then, Alex. What the F*** is this? Asterisk. I leaned my head back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, the confusion curdling into realization, the realization twisting into anger. Then another message came in. Alex. Emily told me she was single. I chuckled, shaking my head. M.E. Shelit. No response for a long time. I imagined him sitting there trying to wrap his head around it. Then, Alex. Are you sure? I rolled my eyes. Me, check the timestamps. Check the dates. She was coming home to me after she was with you. Another long pause. Then, Alex. That be asterisk. I grinned. And then, my phone started ringing. Alex. I stared at the screen, debating. Then, with a shrug, I answered. Silence on the other end at first. Just breathing. Heavy, pissed-off breathing. Then, "You're serious?" His voice was tight, cold, dangerous. "Dead serious," I said, stretching out on the couch. "Surprise, man. You weren't the only one." A sharp exhale. Then, "How long?" I raised an eyebrow. "How long has she been cheating? Or how long has she been lying to you?" Silence. Then lower, angrier. "Both." I checked the messages again, even though I already knew the answer. "Looks like around 5 months. But she started lying to you from the start." A rustling noise, like he was pacing. "Son of a—" He cut himself off, breathing heavily through his nose. "I swear to—" Another sharp inhale. Then a muttered, "I was gonna introduce her to my family." I raised my eyebrows. "Damn. She really got you that bad, huh?" I mused. "She—" He stopped himself. "You know what? F*** her." My thoughts exactly. Silence stretched between us. It wasn't awkward. It was understanding. Two men, played by the same woman, standing in the wreckage she left behind. Then, Alex let out a cold, bitter laugh. "Man, she really thought she could keep this up, huh? She thought she could keep everything." I smirked. She thought she could cheat, lie, and still land on her feet. A pause. Then, "You want to make sure she doesn't?" I blinked. "What?" Alex's voice lowered. Calm. Calculated. "She played both of us." A pause. "Let's play her back." I sat up slowly. "I'm listening." Alex was quiet for a moment. Not hesitant, calculating. Like a man who just realized the knife in his back was still sharp enough to cut. "She thinks she got away with it," he said finally. "She thinks she's walking out of this untouched." I exhaled, rubbing a hand down my face. "She's wrong." He let out a sharp breath, something between a laugh and a scoff. "Yeah, but she doesn't know that yet." I sat up straighter. He was right. Right now, Emily thought she won. She thought she played us both, got caught, and still came out ahead. She walked out of my apartment with her smug little attitude, probably already scheming her next move. We couldn't let that happen. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "What are you thinking?" Another pause. Then, with quiet certainty, Alex said, "We ruin her." A slow smirk pulled at the corner of my lips. "Go on." "I don't know about you," he said, "but she still has a bunch of her stuff at my place." That caught me off guard. "Wait. You two were that serious?" He exhaled sharply. "Yeah, I let her keep things there. A toothbrush. Clothes. Hell, she even had a drawer." I let out a low whistle. "Damn. She really had a whole double life going." His voice hardened. "Not anymore." I leaned back again, considering. "So what are you suggesting? Bonfire? Pawn shop? Dump it on the street?" "No," Alex said, and I could hear the smirk in his voice. "You're gonna drop it off." I frowned. "What?" "I'll pack it all up," he said smoothly. "Every last thing she left at my place. And then you deliver it." I grinned. Oh, that was good. I imagined it. Emily's face when I showed up at her new hiding spot, duffel bag in hand, the same way I had kicked her out of my apartment. She'd opened the door expecting someone else, maybe even Alex, and instead, me, with proof that her whole world was collapsing. She'd know, without a doubt, that she had nothing left. "I like it," I admitted. "But what about you?" Alex chuckled darkly. "Oh, I'll be busy. See, Emily doesn't just have clothes at my place. She has pictures, notes, little things she left lying around." I blinked. And, he continued, "I'll be putting all of it together in a nice little folder." My grin widened. "A folder?" "Yep, a digital scrapbook of her betrayal. And then, when the time is right, I'll make sure everyone sees it." I let out a low laugh. This guy was ruthless. And here I thought I was the one out for revenge. I muttered. Alex's voice was calm, deadly. "She wasted 5 months of my life, Nathan. Lied to my face. Made me think I was building something real." I nodded. "Yeah, same here." Another silence. This time it wasn't cold. It was understanding. "Then, let's do this," I said. "Damn right." I hung up, tossing my phone onto the couch. My pulse was steady. My thoughts were clear. For the first time since I found that first message on her phone, I felt in control. Emily thought she could cheat, lie, and walk away without consequences. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. Emily wasn't expecting me. That was the best part. Alex had sent me the address she gave him, the place she was crashing at now. A friend's apartment, apparently. Some poor girl who probably had no clue she was harboring a backstabbing liar. I took my time driving there. The duffel bag sat in my passenger seat, full of every little thing Emily had left at Alex's place. Clothes, toiletries, her stupid little notes. The ones where she wrote things like, "I feel so safe with you," and "I can't wait to see where this goes." I hoped she choked on the irony. The apartment complex wasn't much. A little run down, a little quiet. Good. I didn't want a scene. I wanted impact. I parked, grabbed the bag, and headed to her door. Then I knocked. A pause. A shuffle. Then Emily's voice. "Coming." I smiled to myself. The door swung open. She was wearing leggings and oversized sweater, looking comfortable, settled, like she had moved on, like she thought she got away with it. And then she saw me. The color drained from her face. "Nathan." I held up the bag. "Special delivery." Her lips parted, but no words came out. So I stepped inside. Uninvited. She stumbled back, caught off guard. "What the hell are you doing here?" I set the duffel bag down by her feet. "Just dropping off your things." She stared at it like it might explode. "My what?" "Your stuff." I gestured to the bag. "The things you left at Alex's place." Her eyes snapped to mine so fast I thought she might get whiplash. Silence. Thick, heavy. Then, "You talked to Alex." Her voice was flat, emotionless, deadly. I grinned. "Oh, we had a great chat." Her hands clenched into fists. "You had no right." "I had every right." I cut in, stepping forward. She stepped back. "Good. You made your choice, Emily. You played your game. You thought you could keep both of us in the dark." She swallowed hard. She wasn't smirking anymore. She wasn't rolling her eyes. She was realizing she had lost. I took another step, lowering my voice. "Did you think you could lie to everyone forever?" She blinked rapidly, like she was trying to think, trying to figure out if there was a way out. "There's nothing left to lie about," I murmured. "Alex knows." "I know. And soon." I tilted my head. "Everyone else will, too." Her breath hitched. "What?" I smiled, slow and deliberate. "Did you think Alex would just take this quietly? That he wouldn't want payback?" Her whole body locked up. I leaned in slightly. "He's sending everything out, Emily. The texts, the pictures, every little love note you left him while you were still in my bed. Panic. Real, raw panic. You..." Her voice broke. She shook her head, stepping back again. "You wouldn't." I raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that?" Her hands trembled. Her lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time, she looked small, like she wasn't the one in control anymore. Because she wasn't. I exhaled slowly, watching her face, letting the weight of it sink in. Then, quieter, calmer. "Actions have consequences, Emily." She knew. She knew. And for the first time in this entire mess, I finally saw it, regret. But it was too late. I stepped back toward the door, pulling it open, letting the cold air rush in. I didn't need to say anything else. I had already won. So I smiled one last time. And then I walked away,